Hey Jammerinos, welcome to YAMMO's Reading Room. Today I'm going to read you some stories, some of my favorites, and I need my reading glasses, but luckily they're already on. Ta-da! And today I'm going to read Mortimer by Robert Munsch, illustrated by Michael Marchenko, one of YAMMO's favorite books. Let's start on page 1. One night, Mortimer's mother took him upstairs to go to bed. When they got upstairs, Mortimer's mother opened the door to his room. She threw him into bed and said, "Mortimer, you be quiet." Mortimer shook his head, yes. The mother shut the door, then she went back down the stairs. As soon as she got back downstairs, Mortimer sang. Cling, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Cling, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Mortimer's father heard all that noise, and he came up the stairs. He opened the door and he yelled, "Mortimer, be quiet." Mortimer shook his head, yes. The father went back down the stairs. As soon as he got to the bottom of the stairs, Mortimer started to sing. Clang, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Cling, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. All of Mortimer's 17 brothers and sisters heard that noise, and then they came up the stairs. They opened the door and yelled in a tremendous loud voice, "Mortimer, be quiet!" Mortimer shook his head, yes. The brothers and sisters all shut the door and went downstairs. As soon as they got to the bottom of the stairs, Mortimer sang. Clang, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. They got so upset that they called the police. 2 policemen came and they walked very slowly up the stairs. They opened the door and they said in very deep policeman-type voices, "Mortimer, be quiet." The policeman shut the door and went back down the stairs. As soon as they got to the bottom of the stairs, Mortimer sang. Clang, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Clang, clang, rattle, bing, bang, gonna make my noise all day. Well, downstairs, no one knew what to do. The mother got into a big fight with the policeman. The father got into a big fight with the brothers and sisters. Upstairs, Mortimer got so tired waiting for someone to come up that he fell asleep. And that's the end of the book. That's Mortimer by Robert Munsch, illustrated by Michael Marchenko. And you know, speaking of sleep, I think it might be time for Yammo to go for a nap. But before you go to bed, make sure to check out some other stories from YAMMO's Reading Room. Okay? Bye, Jammerinos! Hey, Jammerinos! Welcome back to YAMMO's Reading Room. Today, we're reading 50 Below Zero by Robert Munsch, illustrated by Michael Marchenko. 50 Below Zero. In the middle of the night, Jason was asleep. He woke up. He heard a sound and he said, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" Jason opened the door to the kitchen. And there was his father, who walked in his sleep. He was sleeping on top of the refrigerator. Jason yelled, "Papa, wake up!" His father jumped up, ran around the kitchen 3 times, and went back to bed. Jason said, "This house is going crazy!" And he went back to bed. Jason went to sleep. He woke up. He heard a sound. He said, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" He opened the door to the kitchen, but nobody was there. He opened the door to the bathroom, and there was his father sleeping in the bathtub. Jason yelled, "Papa, wake up!" His father jumped up, ran around the bathroom 3 times, and went back to bed. Jason said, "This house is going crazy!" But he was too tired to do anything about it, so he went back to bed. Jason went to sleep. He woke up. He heard a sound. He said, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" He opened the door to the kitchen, but nobody was there. He opened the door to the bathroom. No one was there. He opened the door to the garage, and there was his father sleeping on top of the car. Jason yelled, "Papa, wake up!" His father jumped up, ran around the car 3 times, and went back to bed. Jason said, "This house is going crazy!" But he was too tired to do anything about it, so he went back to bed. Jason went to sleep. He woke up. He heard a sound. He said, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" He opened the door to the kitchen. No one was there. He opened the door to the bathroom. No one was there. He opened the door to the garage. No one was there. He opened the door to the living room, and no one was there. But the front door was open, and his father's footprints went out into the snow. And it was 50 below zero that night. That's cold. "Yikes," said Jason. "My father is outside in just his pajamas. He will freeze like an ice cube." So Jason put on 3 warm snowsuits, 3 warm parkas, 6 warm mittens, 6 warm socks, and 1 pair of very warm boots sort of things called mucklucks. Then he went out the front door and followed his father's footprints. Jason walked and walked and walked and walked. Finally, he found his father. His father was leaning up against a tree. Jason yelled, "Papa, wake up!" His father did not move. Jason yelled in the loudest possible voice, "Papa, wake up!" His father still did not move. Jason tried to pick up his father, but he was too heavy. Jason ran home and got his sled. He pushed his father back onto the sled and pulled him home. When they got back to the back porch, Jason grabbed his father's big toe and he pulled him up the stairs. Bump, 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 bump. He pulled him across the kitchen floor. Scritch, 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 scritch. Then Jason put his father in the tub and turned on the warm water. The tub filled up. Glug, 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 glug. Jason's father jumped up and ran around the bathroom 3 times and went back to bed. Jason said, "This house is going crazy. I am going to do something." So he got a long rope and he tied one end to his father's bed and one end to his father's big toe. Jason went to sleep. He woke up. He heard a sound. He said, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" He opened the kitchen door. And there was his father, stuck in the middle of the floor. "Good," said Jason. "That is the end of his sleepwalking. Now I can go to sleep." In the middle of the night, Jason's mother was asleep. She woke up. She heard a sound. She said, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" She opened the door to the kitchen and... And that was 50 Below Zero by Robert Munsch. Thanks so much for tuning into Yammo's Reading Room, and make sure to check out my other Reading Room videos. Bye, Jammerinos! Welcome to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos! We got a special one today. This one's called I Have to Go by Robert Munsch. One day, Andrew's mother and father were taking him to see his grandma and grandpa. Before they put him in the car, his mother said, "Andrew, do you have to go pee?" Andrew said, "No, no, 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 no." His father said, very slowly and clearly, "Andrew, do you have to go pee?" "No, no, no, no," said Andrew. "I have decided never to go pee again." So they put Andrew in the car, fastened his seatbelt, and gave him lots of books, lots of toys, and lots of crayons, and drove him down the road. Vroom! They had been driving for just 1 minute when Andrew yelled, "I have to go pee!" "Yikes!" said the father. "Oh no!" said the mother. Then the father said, "Now Andrew, wait just 5 minutes. In 5 minutes we'll come to a gas station where you can go pee." Andrew said, "I have to go pee right now." So the mother stopped the car. Screech! Andrew jumped out of the car and peed behind a bush. When they got to Grandma's and Grandpa's house, Andrew wanted to go out to play. It was snowing, and he needed a snowsuit. Before they put on the snowsuit, the mother and father and the Grandma and Grandpa all said, "Andrew, do you have to go pee?" Andrew said, "No, no, 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 no!" So they put on Andrew's snowsuit. It had 5 zippers, 10 buckles, and 17 snaps. It took them half an hour to get the snowsuit on. Andrew walked out to the backyard, threw 1 snowball, and yelled, "I have to go pee!" The father and the mother and the grandma and the grandpa all ran outside, got Andrew out of the snowsuit, and carried him to the bathroom. When Andrew came back down, they had a nice long dinner. Then it was time for Andrew to go to bed. Before they put Andrew into bed, the mother and the father and the grandma and the grandpa all said, "Andrew, do you have to go pee?" Andrew said, "No, no, 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 no!" So his mother gave him a kiss, and his father gave him a kiss, and his grandma gave him a kiss, and his grandpa gave him a kiss. "Just wait," said the mother. "He's going to yell and say he has to go pee." "Oh," said the father, "he does it every night. It's driving me crazy." The grandmother said, "I never had these problems with my children." They waited for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The father said, "I think he's asleep." The mother said, "Yes, I think he is asleep." The grandmother said, "He is definitely asleep, and he didn't yell to say he has to go pee." Then Andrew said, "I wet my bed." So the mother and the father and the grandma and the grandpa all changed Andrew's bed and Andrew's pajamas. Then the mother gave him a kiss, and the father gave him a kiss, and the grandma gave him a kiss, and the grandpa gave him a kiss, and all the grown-ups went downstairs. They waited 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and from upstairs Andrew yelled, "Grandpa, do you have to go pee?" And Grandpa said, "Why, yes, I think I do." Andrew said, "Well, so do I." So they both went to the bathroom and peed in the toilet, and Andrew did not wet his bed again that night, not even once. And that's it. I Have to Go by Robert Munsch. Thanks for stopping by Yammo's Reading Room yet again, Jammerinos. Make sure to check out all my other reading videos. Bye for now. Welcome back to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Today we're reading another Robert Munsch book, one of my favorite authors. This one's called The Boy in the Drawer. When Shelley went into her room, there were socks on the floor, socks on the bed, socks on the dresser, socks on the wall, and socks everywhere. "Yikes," said Shelley. "What a mess!" And from out of the sock drawer, somebody yelled, "Be quiet!" So Shelley crawled across the floor and very carefully looked into the drawer. A small boy was sitting while reading a book. Shelley ran downstairs and said, "Mommy, Mommy, there's a boy in my sock drawer." "Tell him to go home," said the mother. "And there are socks all over my room." "Clean them up," said the mother. But, clean them up," said the mother. So Shelley went back upstairs and looked in the drawer. The boy was gone. She cleaned up the whole room and went downstairs for lunch. When Shelley went back upstairs, there was a large bump in the middle of the bed. She pulled back the covers, and there was the boy watering a tomato plant. Shelley ran downstairs and said, "Mommy, Mommy, my bed is a mess." "Clean it up," said the mother. But, clean it up," said the mother. When Shelley went back upstairs, the boy was gone. She cleaned up the whole mess by herself. Shelley went downstairs and read a book. The room started to get dark. Shelley looked around and saw a big bump behind the drape. She very quietly crawled over to the drape and yanked it up. There was the boy. He was painting the window black. "Go away," said Shelley. The boy grew 5 centimeters. "Beat it," said Shelley. The boy grew 5 more centimeters. Shelley took a paintbrush and painted the boy's ear black. He grew 5 more centimeters. "Help!" yelled Shelley, and she ran off to find her mother and father. They weren't in the basement and they weren't upstairs. They were in the kitchen. So was a lot of water. It was all coming out of the bread box. Shelley walked very quietly to the bread box and yanked it open. There was the boy. He was taking a bath. He said, "Please go away, you're bothering me." Shelly had an idea. She turned the hot water all the way off, and she turned the cold water all the way on. When the cold water hit the boy, he jumped up, grew 50 centimeters, and sat in the middle of the kitchen table. The father and mother both said, "Shelly, tell your friend to go home." So Shelly said, "Beat it." The boy grew 10 centimeters. Shelly decided to try something different. Very carefully, she walked over and patted the boy. Right away, he got a little smaller. Then her father went to the table and gave the boy a hug. He got very small. Then her mother gave the boy a kiss, and he disappeared entirely. "And who will clean up the kitchen?" said the mother. "And who will clean up the kitchen?" said the father. "And who will clean up the kitchen?" said Shelly. And the mother gave Shelly a hug, and the father gave Shelly a hug. And she cleaned up the whole mess with no trouble at all. That one was called The Boy in the Drawer by Robert Munsch. I really like this book. It shows that with just a little bit of kindness, you can solve all your problems. Thanks for stopping by Yammo's Reading Room, and make sure to check out more Yammo Reading Room stories. Bye, Jammerinos! Hey, Jammerinos! Welcome to Yammo's Reading Room. Today, we're going to read Thomas's Snowsuit by Robert Munsch. One day, Thomas's mother bought him a nice new brown snowsuit. When Thomas saw that snowsuit, he said, "That is the ugliest thing I have ever seen in my life. If you think I'm going to wear that ugly snowsuit, you are crazy." Thomas's mother said, "We will see about that." The next day, when it was time to go to school, the mother said, "Thomas, please put on your snowsuit." And Thomas said, "No." His mother jumped up and down and said, "Thomas, put on that snowsuit." And Thomas said, "No." So Thomas's mother picked up Thomas in one hand and picked up the snowsuit in the other hand, and she tried to stick them together. They had an enormous fight, and when it was done, Thomas was in his snowsuit. Thomas went off to school and hung up his snowsuit. When it was time to go outside, all of the other kids jumped into their snowsuits and ran out the door, but not Thomas. The teacher looked at Thomas and said, "Thomas, please put on your snowsuit." And Thomas said, "No." The teacher jumped up and down and said, "Thomas, put on that snowsuit." And Thomas said, "No." So the teacher picked up Thomas in one hand, picked up the snowsuit in the other hand, and she tried to stick them together. They had an enormous fight. And when they were done, the teacher was wearing Thomas's snowsuit and Thomas was wearing the teacher's dress. When the teacher saw what she was wearing, she picked up Thomas in one hand and tried to get him back into his snowsuit. They had an enormous fight. When they were done, the swimsuit and the dress were tied together in a great big knot on the floor, and Thomas and the teacher were in their underclothes. Just then, the door opened and in walked the principal. The teacher said, "It's Thomas! He won't put on his snowsuit!" The principal gave his very best principal look and said, "Thomas, put on your snowsuit." And Thomas said, "No!" So the principal picked up Thomas in one hand and he picked up the teacher in the other hand and he tried to get them back into their clothes. When he was done, the principal was wearing the teacher's dress, the teacher was wearing the principal's suit, and Thomas was still in his underwear. Then from far out in the playground, someone yelled, "Thomas, come out and play!" Thomas ran across the room, jumped into his snowsuit, got his boots on in 2 seconds, and he ran out the door. The principal looked at the teacher and said, "Hey, you have on my suit. Take it off right now." The teacher said, "Oh no, you have on my dress. You take off my dress first." Well, they argued and argued and argued, and neither one wanted to change first. Finally, Thomas came in from recess. He looked at the principal and he looked at the teacher. Thomas picked up the principal in one hand, he picked up the teacher in the other hand. They had an enormous fight, and Thomas got everybody back into their clothes. The next day, the principal quit his job and moved to Arizona, where nobody ever wears a snowsuit. That's a funny book. I like the ending to that one. That was Thomas's Snowsuit by Robert Munsch. Make sure to check out other stories from Yammo's Reading Room. See you later, Jammerinos! Oh, I see you've clicked on Yammo's Reading Room. Well, we're back with another book by Robert Munsch today called Pajama Day. Let's get going. Andrew's old pajamas were full of holes, so his father took him to get new ones. They went to a store, and Andrew said, "Yuck, these pajamas do not feel right." They went to another store, and Andrew said, "Yuck, these pajamas do not smell right." They went to another store, and Andrew said, "Yuck, these pajamas do not taste right. I'll wear my old ones." His father took him to one more store. Way in the back was a rack that said, "Perfect Pajamas." Andrew looked at the pajamas and said, "All right, they look okay." He smelled the pajamas and said, "All right, they smell okay." He tasted the pajamas and said, "All right, they taste okay." So his father bought the pajamas. The next day was Pajama Day at school. Andrew put one foot into his new pajamas and yawned once. He put the other foot in and yawned twice. He put one arm in and his eyes closed, and he put the other arm in and fell fast asleep. This was very strange because it was only 9 o'clock. Andrew's teacher put him in the back of the room and said, "He'll wake up in a bit." Andrew slept until recess, and his teacher started to get worried. He slept until lunch, and the principal started to get worried. He slept all afternoon, and even the kids started to get worried. At the end of the day, the teacher called for a doctor. The doctor bonked Andrew on the knee, looked in his ears, and looked in his eyes. She said that he was fine, but Andrew was still fast asleep. Then Andrew's big sister came to walk him home from school. She said, "I'm going to call Mom." Andrew's mother took one look and said, "I see what's wrong. He's wearing perfect pajamas." She took Andrew's arm out of the pajamas and he yawned. She took his other arm out of the pajamas and he opened one eye, just for a second. She took out one foot and he opened both his eyes. She took out the other foot and Andrew jumped up and said, "Is it recess yet?" The principal came in and said, "What is going on here?" "Look," said Andrew's mother, "it was perfect pajamas that made Andrew sleep. These are perfect pajamas." "That's crazy," said the principal. "I say there's no such thing as perfect pajamas, and I'm a principal, so I know everything twice." But just to be sure, the principal decided to try them out. The principal looked at the pajamas, and they looked okay. He smelled the pajamas, and they smelled okay. He tasted the pajamas, and they tasted okay. He put one foot in the pajamas, and he yawned. He put the other foot in the pajamas, and he yawned again. He put his arms in the pajamas, and he fell fast asleep. Andrew's mother carried the principal back to his office, and then she took Andrew home. Then Andrew's mom made him some real perfect pajamas. They kept Andrew warm as toast, even on very cold nights, and they were really perfect because they only made Andrew go to sleep when he wanted to go to sleep. And the principal? He is still sleeping. And that was Pajama Day by Robert Munsch. Speaking of pajamas, is it bedtime for you? Or do you have time to click on one more Yammo's Reading Room video? I got a big selection of them, so take a look. See you later, Jammerinos. Thanks for clicking on Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Today we've got another Robert Munsch book, Alligator Baby. I wonder what this one's about. Let's start. One night, Kristen's mother woke up and yelled, "A baby! A baby! I'm having a baby!" Kristen's father jumped up, zoomed around the room, got dressed, and grabbed Kristen's mother by the hand. They ran downstairs to the car and drove off really fast. Vroom! Unfortunately, they got lost. They didn't go to the hospital, they went to the zoo. But it was okay. Kristen's mother had a lovely baby. Then they drove home and knocked on the front door. Blam, 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 blam. Kristen opened the door, and there was her mother holding something all wrapped up. "Kristen," she said, "would you like to see your new baby brother?" "Oh, yes," said Kristen. So Kristen lifted up the bottom of the blanket. She saw a long green tail and said, "That's not a people tail." Kristen lifted up the middle of the blanket, saw a green claw, and said, "Well, that's not a people claw." Kristen lifted up the top of the blanket, saw a long green face with lots of teeth, and said, "That's not a people face. That is not my baby brother." "Now, Kristen," said her mother, "don't be jealous." Just then, the baby reached up and bit Kristen's mother on the nose. She yelled, "Ah-ha!" Then the baby reached up and bit her father on the nose. He yelled, "Ah-ha!" "That's not a people baby," said Kristen. "That's an alligator baby." "Goodness," said her mother, "we've got the wrong baby." So Kristen put the alligator baby into the fish tank, and her mother and father drove back to the zoo. They came back in an hour and knocked on the door. Blam, 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 blam. Kristen opened the door, and her mother said, "Would you like to see your new baby brother?" "Oh, yes," said Kristen. Kristen lifted up the bottom of the blanket, saw a fishy tail, and said, "Well, that's not a people tail." Kristen lifted up the middle of the blanket, saw a flipper, and said, "That's not a people flipper." Kristen lifted up the top of the blanket, saw a face with whiskers, and said, "That is not a people face. That is not my baby brother." "Now, Kristen," said her mother, "don't be jealous." Just then, the baby reached up with its flipper and flapped her father's face. Whap, 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 whap. He yelled, "Ah! It's a seal baby! We've got the wrong baby!" So Kristen put the seal baby in the bathtub, and her mother and father drove back to the zoo. They came back in an hour and knocked on the door. Blam, 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 blam. They said, "Kristen, would you like to see your new baby brother?" "Oh, yes," said Kristen. She lifted up the bottom of the blanket, saw a very hairy leg, and said, "That is not a people leg." She lifted up the middle of the blanket, saw a very hairy arm, and said, "That is not a people arm." She lifted up the top of the blanket, saw a very hairy face, and said, "That is not a people face. That is not my baby brother." "Now, Kristen," said her mother, "don't be jealous." Then the baby reached up with its feet and grabbed her mother's ear and her father's ear, and they both yelled, "Ah, it's a gorilla baby! We've got the wrong baby!" "Let me do it," said Kristen. So her mother and father put the gorilla baby on the chandelier in the living room, and Kristen went off to the zoo on her bicycle. First, Kristen looked in the snake cage. No people babies. Then Kristen looked in the wombat cage. No people babies. Then Kristen looked in the elephant cage. No people babies. Then she stopped and listened. From far away, she heard wah, wah, wah. "That's more like it," said Kristen. She followed the sound. It was coming from the gorilla cage. Kristen looked at the mommy gorilla and said, "Give me my baby brother." The gorilla jumped away and wouldn't give the baby back at all. Then the people baby reached up and bit the gorilla on the nose. The gorilla yelled, "Ah! Woo, woo, woo," and handed the baby to Kristen. Kristen jumped on her bicycle and pedaled home. Kristen knocked on the door. Blam, 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 blam. When her parents opened it, she said, "Would you like to see your new baby?" Kristen's mother lifted up the bottom of the blanket and said, "Look, people legs." She lifted up the middle of the blanket and said, "Look, people hands." She lifted up the top of the blanket and said, "Look, a people face." Kristen's mother picked up the baby and gave it a big hug. Her father took the baby and gave it a big hug. And her mother said, "Kristen, Kristen, you got the baby back. Good for you." "But what are we going to do with all these other babies?" yelled Kristen's father. "There is a seal baby in the bathtub and an alligator baby in the fish tank and a gorilla baby hanging from the chandelier. We should take them back to the zoo." But Kristen looked out the window and said, "I don't think we have to do anything at all." And everything was okay until Kristen's mother had twins. And that was Alligator Baby by Robert Munsch. What a big mix-up. Could you imagine losing your baby brother or sister in the zoo? Woo! Thanks for clicking on Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos, and please come back for the next one. Bye for now. Welcome back to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Today we got another special one by Robert Munsch. It's called David's Father. Here we go. Julie was skipping home from school. She came to a large moving van. A man came out carrying a spoon, only it was as big as a shovel. Another man came out carrying a fork, only it was as big as a pitchfork. And a third man came out carrying a knife, only it was as big as a flagpole. "Yikes," said Julie. "I don't want to get to know these people at all." She ran all the way home and hid under her bed until dinner time. The next day, Julie was skipping home from school again. A boy was standing where the moving van had been. He said, "Hi, my name's David. Would you like to come and play?" Julie looked at him very carefully. He seemed to be a regular sort of boy, so she stayed to play. At 5 o'clock, from far away down the street, someone called, "Julie, come and eat." "That's my mother," said Julie. And then someone called, "David!" "That's my father," said David. Julie jumped in the air, ran around in a circle 3 times, ran home, and locked herself in her room till it was time for breakfast the next morning. The next day, Julie was skipping home and she saw David again. He said, "Hi, Julie, do you want to come and play?" Julie looked at him very, very carefully. He seemed to be a regular boy, so she stayed and played. When it was almost 5 o'clock, David said, "Julie, please stay for dinner." But Julie remembered the big knife, the big fork, and the big spoon. "Well, I don't know," said Julie. "Maybe it's a bad idea. I think maybe no. Goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye." "Well," said David, "we're having cheeseburgers, chocolate milkshakes, and a salad." "Oh," said Julie, "I love cheeseburgers. I'll stay. So they went into the kitchen. There was a small table with cheeseburgers, milkshakes, and salads. On the other side of the room, there was an enormous table. On it were a big spoon as big as a shovel, a fork as big as a pitchfork, and a knife as big as a flagpole. "David," whispered Julie, "who sits there?" "Oh," said David, "that's where my father sits. You can hear him coming now." David's father sounded like this. Broom, broom, broom. He opened the door. David's father was a giant. On his table, there were 26 snails, 3 fried octopuses, and 16 bricks covered with chocolate sauce. David and Julie ate their cheeseburgers and the father ate the snails. David and Julie drank their milkshakes and the father ate the fried octopuses. David and Julie ate their salads and the father ate his chocolate-covered bricks. David's father asked Julie if she would like a snail. Julie said no. David's father asked Julie if she would like an octopus. Julie said no. David's father asked Julie if she would like a delicious chocolate-covered brick. Julie said no, but please, may I have another milkshake? So David's father made her another milkshake. When they were done, Julie said very softly, so the father couldn't hear, "David, you don't look very much like your father." "Well, I'm adopted," said David. "Oh," said Julie. "Well, do you like your father?" "He's great," said David. "Come for a walk and see." So they walked down the street. Julie and David skipped, but the father went boom, boom, boom. They came to a road, and they couldn't get across. The cars would not stop for David. The cars would not stop for Julie. The father walked into the middle of the road, looked at the cars, and yelled, "Stop!" The cars all jumped up into the air, ran around in a circle 3 times, and went back up the street so fast they forgot their tires. Julie and David crossed the street and went into a store. The man who ran the store didn't like serving kids. They waited for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then David's father came in. He looked at the storekeeper and said, "These kids are my friends." The man jumped up into the air, ran around the store 3 times, and gave David and Julie 3 boxes of ice cream, 11 bags of potato chips, and 19 lifesavers, all for free. Julie and David walked down the street and went around a bend. There were 6 big kids from grade 8 standing in the middle of the sidewalk. They looked at David, they looked at Julie, and they looked at the food. Then one big kid reached down and grabbed a box of ice cream. David's father came around the bend. He looked at the big kids and yelled, "Beat it!" They jumped right out of their shirts, they jumped right out of their pants, and they ran down the street in their underwear. Julie ran after them, but she slipped and scraped her elbow. David's father picked her up and held her. Then he put a special giant bandage on her elbow. Julie said, "Well, David, you do have a very nice father after all, but he is still kind of scary." "You think he's scary?" said David. "Wait till you meet my grandmother." And that was David's Father by Robert Munsch. Thanks again for stopping by, Jammerinos. Welcome back to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Today we have Jonathan Cleaned Up, Then He Heard a Sound, or Blackberry Subway Jam by Robert Munsch. Jonathan's mother went to get a can of noodles. She said, "Jonathan, please don't make a mess." When she was gone, Jonathan stood in the middle of the apartment and looked at the nice clean rug and the nice clean walls and the very, very clean sofa and said, "Well, there is certainly no mess here." Then he heard a sound. It was coming from behind the wall. He put his ear up against the wall and listened very carefully. The noise sounded like a train. Just then, the wall slid open and a subway train pulled up and stopped. Someone yelled, "Last stop! Everybody out!" Then little people, big people, fat people, and thin people, all kinds of people came out of Jonathan's wall, ran around his apartment, and out the front door. Jonathan stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. There was writing on the wall, gum on the rug, a man sleeping on the sofa, and all the food was gone from the refrigerator. "Well," said Jonathan, "this certainly is a mess." Jonathan tried to drag the man out the door, but he met his mother coming in. She saw the writing on the walls, the gum on the rug, and the empty refrigerator. She yelled, "Jonathan, what a mess!" Jonathan said, "Well, the wall opened up and there was a subway train. Thousands of people came running through." But his mother said, "Oh, John, don't be silly. Clean it up." She went out to get another can of noodles, and Jonathan cleaned up. When he was all done, he heard a sound. It was coming from behind the wall. He put his ear up against the wall and listened very carefully. The noise sounded just like a train. Just then, the wall slid open, and there was a subway train. Someone yelled, "Last stop! Everybody out!" And all kinds of people came out of Jonathan's wall, ran around his apartment, and out the front door. This time, there were ice cream cones and chewing gum on the rug, writing and footprints on the wall, 2 men sleeping on the sofa, and a policeman watching TV. Besides that, the refrigerator was gone. Jonathan got angry and yelled, "Everybody out!" Just then, his mother came in. She saw ice cream cones and chewing gum on the rug, writing and footprints on the wall, 2 men sleeping on the sofa, a policeman watching TV, and a big empty space where the refrigerator had been. "Jonathan," she said, "what have you done?" Then she heard a noise. It was coming from behind the wall. She put her ear right against the wall and listened very carefully. The noise sounded like a train. Just then, the wall slid open and a subway train pulled up. Someone yelled, "Last stop! Everybody out!" And all kinds of people ran out of Jonathan's wall, ran around his apartment, and then out the front door. There were ice cream cones, chewing gum, and pretzel bags on the rug, writing, footprints, and handprints on the wall, and 5 men were sleeping on the sofa. Besides that, a policeman and a conductor were watching TV, and the fridge and stove were gone. Jonathan went to the conductor and said, "This is not a subway station. This is my house." The conductor said, "If the subway stops here, then it's a subway station. You shouldn't build your house in a subway station. If you don't like it, go to City Hall." So, Jonathan went to City Hall. When he got there, the lady at the front desk told him to go see the subway boss, and the subway boss told Jonathan to go see the mayor. So he went and saw the mayor. The mayor said, "If the subway stops there, then it's a subway station. You shouldn't build your house on a subway station. Our computer says it's a subway station and our computer is never wrong." Then he ran out for lunch. In fact, everyone ran out for lunch, and Jonathan was all by himself at City Hall. Jonathan started to leave, but on his way out, he heard a sound. Someone was crying, "Oh, I'm hungry." Jonathan listened very carefully. He walked up and down the hall and found the room it was coming from. He went in, and there was a big, enormous, shining computer machine. The computer was going wing, wing, clunk, clickety clang, and its lights were going off and on. The voice was coming from behind it. Jonathan squeezed in the back of the machine and saw a little old man at a very messy desk. He looked at Jonathan and said, "Do you have any Blackberry jam?" "No," said Jonathan, "but I could get you some. Who are you?" "I'm the computer," said the man. Now Jonathan was no dummy. He said, "Computers are machines, and you're not a machine. They go wing, wing, kerclung, clickety clang." The man pointed at the big computer and said, "Well, that goes wing, wing, kerclung, clickety clang, but the darn thing never did work. I do everything for the whole city." "Oh," said Jonathan. "Well, I will get you some Blackberry jam if you do me a favor. A subway station is in my house at 980 Yonge Street. Please change it." "Certainly," said the old man. "I remember doing that. I didn't know where to put it." Jonathan ran out and passed all the offices with nobody there. He ran down the stairs all the way to a jam store. He got 4 cases of jam. It took him 3 hours to carry it all the way back to City Hall. There was still nobody there. He carried the jam back behind the computer and put it on the floor. "Now," said the old man, "where am I going to put this subway station?" "I know," said Jonathan, and he whispered something in the old man's ear. Then he left. But the old man yelled after him, "Don't tell anyone the computer is broken. The mayor would be very upset. He paid $10 million for it." When Jonathan got home, his mother was still standing on the rug because she was stuck to the gum. Jonathan started washing the writing off the wall. He said, "There will be no more subways here." And he was right. That was Jonathan Cleaned Up, Then He Heard a Sound, or Blackberry Subway Jam by Robert Munsch. And just so you know, at the very end, that picture showed that the new subway stop was in the mayor's office. Woohoo! He's not going to be happy. Okay, thanks for stopping by Yammo's Reading Room again, Jammerinos. Stay tuned for more. It's Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos, and today we've got a Robert Munsch book called Moira's Birthday. Here we go. One day, Moira went to her mother and said, "For my birthday, I want to invite grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and kindergarten." Her mother said, "Are you crazy? That's too many kids." So Moira went to her father and said, "For my birthday, I want to invite grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and kindergarten." Her father said, "Are you crazy? That's too many kids. For your birthday, you can invite 6 kids. Just 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And no kindergarten." So Moira went to school and invited 6 friends, but a friend who had not been invited came up and said, "Oh, Moira, couldn't I please come to your birthday party?" Moira said, okay. By the end of the day, Moira had invited grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and kindergarten. But she didn't tell her mother and father. She was afraid they might get upset. On the day of the party, someone knocked on the door. Rap, 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 rap. Moira opened it up and saw 6 kids. Her father said, "That's it, 6 kids. Now we can start the party." Moira said, "Well, let's just wait one more minute." So they waited 1 minute and something knocked on the door like this. Blam, 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 blam. Her father and mother opened the door and they saw grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and kindergarten. The kids ran in right over the mother and father. When the father and the mother got up off the floor, they saw kids in the basement, kids in the living room, kids in the kitchen, kids in the bedrooms, kids in the bathroom, and kids on the roof. They said, "Moira, how are we going to feed all these kids?" Moira said, "Don't worry, I know what to do." She went to the telephone and called a place that made pizzas. She said, "To my house, please send 200 pizzas." The lady at the restaurant yelled, "200 pizzas? Are you crazy? 200 pizzas is too many pizzas." "Well, that is what I want," said Moira. "We'll send 10, said the lady. "Just 10. 10 is all we can send right now." Then she hung up. Then Moira called a bakery. She said, "To my house, please send 200 birthday cakes." The man at the bakery yelled, "200 birthday cakes? Are you crazy? That is way too many birthday cakes." "Well, that is what I want," said Moira. "We'll send 10, said the man. "Just 10. 10 is all we can send right now." Then he hung up. So a great big truck came and poured just 10 pizzas into Moira's front yard. Another truck came and poured just 10 birthday cakes into Moira's front yard. The kids looked at that pile of stuff and they all yelled, "Food!" They opened their mouths as wide as they could and ate up all the pizzas and birthday cakes in just 5 seconds. Then they all yelled, "More food!" "Uh-oh," said the mother. "We need lots more food or they're not going to be a party at all. Who can get us more food, fast?" The 200 kids yelled, "We will!" and ran out the door. Moira waited for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. "They're not coming back," said the mother. "They're not coming back," said the father. "Wait and see," said Moira. Then something knocked on the door like this. Blam, 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 blam. The mother and father opened it up, and the 200 kids ran in carrying all sorts of food. There was fried goat, rolled oats, burnt toast and artichokes, old cheese, baked fleas, boiled bats and beans. There was eggnog, pork sogs, simmered soup and hot dogs, jam jars, dinosaurs, chocolate bars, and stew. The 200 kids ate the food in just 10 minutes. When they finished eating, everyone gave Moira their present. Moira looked around and saw presents in the bedrooms, presents in the bathroom, and presents on the roof. "Uh-oh," said Moira, "the whole house is full of presents. Even I can't use that many presents." "And who," asked the father, "is going to clean up this mess?" "I have an idea," said Moira, and she yelled, "Anybody who helps clean up gets to take home a present." The 200 kids cleaned up the house in just 5 minutes. Then each kid took a present and went out the door. "Whew," said the mother, "I'm glad that's over." "Whew," said the father, "I'm glad that's over." "Uh-oh," said Moira, "I think I hear a truck." A great big dump truck came and poured 190 pizzas into Moira's front yard. The driver said, "Here's the rest of your pizzas." Then another dump truck came and poured 190 birthday cakes into Moira's front yard. The driver said, "Here's the rest of your birthday cakes." "How," said the father, "are we going to eat all of this food?" "That's easy," said Moira. "We'll just have to do it again tomorrow and have another birthday party. Let's invite grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and kindergarten." And that was Moira's Birthday by Robert Munsch. Thanks again for tuning in to Yammo's Reading Room, and take a look at all of our other stories too. Bye for now. Welcome back to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Hey, I'm just wondering, is it dark where you are right now? Because if so, this book might be perfect for you. This is The Dark by Robert Munsch. Let's begin. When Jewel Ann came down the stairs for breakfast, there was a big cookie jar on the kitchen table. She turned it upside down, but nothing came out. So she hit the bottom of the jar, whap, 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 and still nothing came out. Finally, she held the jar up over her head and looked into it. A small dark lump fell out, bounced on her nose, and rolled across the table. Jewel Ann said, "What's that?" Her mother said, "What's that?" The small dark ate Jewel Ann's shadow and got a little bigger. The small dark ate her mother's shadow and got a little bigger. The small dark ate the toaster's shadow and got even bigger. "I think it's a dark," said Jewel Ann. By this time, the dark was just as big as the toaster. Jewel Ann's father came in and said, "Hey, what's that?" Jewel Ann said, "It's a dark. It eats shadows." Jewel Ann's father picked up the dark and threw it out the window. The dark landed and bounced, boing, 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 down the street. The dark saw lots of car shadows and ate them up. The dark saw lots of telephone pole shadows and ate them up. The dark saw lots of house shadows and it ate them up. The dark even saw some butterfly shadows and it ate them up. The dark was now as big as a hill. It came back to Jewel Ann's house, sat on the roof, and went to sleep. The whole yard was so dark that Jewel Ann could not go out and play. Jewel Ann's mother and father said, "What's this?" They ran out to chase away the dark. But it was so dark outside that they got lost. They could not even find the door to come back in. Jewel Ann was very upset. Then she saw that the dark had not eaten her chair's shadow, so she broke off a piece and held it out the window. She yelled, "Food!" The dark came right down the side of the house and jumped on the shadow. Then Jewel Ann broke up the rest of the shadow into little pieces and put them in the cookie jar. Right away, the dark flew through the window and jumped into the jar to eat the shadow. As soon as the dark was inside, Jewel Ann put the top on the jar. She taped it with tape, she glued it with glue, she plastered it with plaster, and she roped it with rope. Then all her friends helped her carry it to the garbage can and they dumped it inside. Her mother and father called the garbage truck. The truck came and took the dark away, and it never came back. All the shadows took a whole week to grow again. And that was The Dark by Robert Munsch. If it's getting dark where you are, it might be time to go to bed. Have a good night, Jammerinos. Thanks for clicking on Yammo's Reading Room. Bye-bye. It's another episode of Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. And today, you guessed it, we got a Robert Munsch book. This one is called Something Good. Here we go. Taya went shopping with her father and her brother and her sister. She pushed the cart up the aisle and down the aisle, up the aisle and down the aisle, up the aisle and down the aisle. Taya said, "Sometimes my father doesn't buy good food. He gets bread, eggs, milk, cheese, spinach. Nothing any good. He doesn't buy ice cream, cookies, chocolate bars, or ginger ale." So Taya very quietly snuck away from her father and got a cart of her own. She pushed it over to the ice cream. Then she put 100 boxes of ice cream in her cart. Taya pushed that cart up behind her father and said, "Daddy, look!" Her father turned around and yelled, "Yikes!" Taya said, "Daddy, good food." "Oh no," said her father, "this is sugary junk. It'll rot your teeth. It'll lower your IQ. Put it all back." So Taya put back the 100 boxes of ice cream. She meant to go right back to her father, but on the way she had to pass the candy. She put 300 chocolate bars in her cart. Taya pushed that cart up behind her father and said, "Daddy, look!" Her father turned around and said, "Yikes!" Taya said, "Daddy, good food." "Oh no," said her father, "this is all sugary junk. Put it all back." So Taya put back all the chocolate bars. Then her father said, "Okay, Taya, I have had it. You stand here and don't move." Taya knew that she was in big trouble, so she stood there and didn't move. Some friends came by and said hello. Taya didn't move. A man ran over her toe with his cart. Taya still didn't move. A lady who worked at the store came by and looked at Taya. She looked her over from the top down, and she looked her over from the bottom up. She knocked Taya on the head, and Taya still didn't move. The lady said, "This is the nicest doll I have ever seen. It looks almost real." She put a price tag on Taya's nose that said $29.95. Then she picked Taya up and put her on the shelf with all the other dolls. A man came along and looked at Taya. He said, "This is the nicest doll I have ever seen. I'm going to get this doll for my son." He picked up Taya by the hair. Taya yelled very loudly, "Stop!" And the man screamed, "Ah! It's alive!" He ran down the aisle, knocking over a pile of 500 apples. A lady came along and looked at Taya. She said, "This is the nicest doll I have ever seen. I think I will buy this doll for my daughter." She picked up Taya by the ear. Taya yelled as loud as she could, "Stop!" The lady screamed, "Ah! It's alive!" She ran down the aisle, knocking over a pile of 500 oranges. Then Taya's father came along looking for his daughter. He said, "Taya, Taya, 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 where are you? Taya! What are you doing on that shelf?" Taya said, "It's all your fault. You told me not to move, and people were trying to buy me. Wah!" "Oh, come now," said her father. "I won't let anybody buy you." He gave Taya a big kiss and a big hug. Then they went to pay for all the food. The man at the cash register looked at Taya and said, "Hey, mister, you can't take that kid out of the store. You have to pay for her. It says so right on her nose, $29.95. "Wait," said the father. "This is my own kid. I don't have to pay for my own kid." The man said, "If it has a price tag, you have to pay for it." "I won't pay," said the father. "You've got to," said the man. The father said, "No." The man said, "Yes." The father said, "No." The man said, "Yes." The father and Andrew and Julie all yelled, "No." Then Taya quietly said, "Daddy, don't you think I'm worth $29.95? Well, of course you're worth $29.95, said the father. He reached into his wallet, got out the money, paid the man, and took the price tag off of Taya's nose. Taya gave her father a big kiss, smirch, and a big hug. Then she said, "Daddy, you finally bought something good after all." Then her father picked up Taya and gave her a big long hug and didn't say anything at all. And that was Something Good by Robert Munsch. That's such a nice story. Yammo really likes this one. Thanks for stopping by Yammo's Reading Room again, Jammerinos. Welcome back to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Today we've got Murmel, Murmel, Murmel by Robert Munsch. Here we go. When Robin went out into her backyard, there was a large hole right in the middle of her sandbox. She knelt down beside it and yelled, "Anybody down there?" From way down the hole, something said, "Murmel, Murmel, Murmel." Said Robin, "Very strange." So she yelled even louder, "Anybody down there?" "Murmel, Murmel, Murmel," said the hole. Robin reached down the hole as far as she could and gave an enormous yank. Out popped a baby. "Murmel, Murmel, Murmel," said the baby. "Murmel yourself," said Robin. "I am only 5 years old and I can't take care of a baby. I will find somebody else to take care of you." Robin picked up the very heavy baby and walked down the street. She met a woman pushing a baby carriage. Robin said, "Excuse me, do you need a baby?" "Heavens no," said the woman. "I already have a baby." She went off down the street and 17 diaper salesmen jumped out from behind a hedge and ran after her. Robin picked up the baby and went on down the street. She met an old woman and said, "Excuse me, do you need a baby?" "Does it pee its pants?" said the old lady. "Yes," said Robin. "Yuck," said the old lady. "Does it dirty its diaper?" "Yes," said Robin. "Yuck," said the old lady. "Does it have a runny nose?" "Yes," said Robin. "Yuck," said the old lady. "I already have 17 cats. I don't need a baby." She went off down the street. 17 cats jumped out of a garbage can and ran after her. Robin picked up the baby and went down the street. She met a woman in fancy clothes. "Excuse me," said Robin. "Do you need a baby?" "Heavens no," said the woman. "I have 17 jobs, lots of money, and no time. I don't need a baby." She went off down the street. 17 secretaries, 9 messengers, and a pizza delivery boy ran after her. "Rats," said Robin. She picked up the baby and walked down the street. She met a man. "Excuse me," she said. "Do you need a baby?" "Oh, I don't know," said the man. "Can it wash my car?" "No," said Robin. "Can I sell it for lots of money?" "No," said Robin. Well, what's it for? Said the man. It's for loving and hugging and feeding and burping, said Robin. I certainly don't need that, said the man. He went off down the street and nobody followed him. Robin sat down beside the street, for the baby was getting very heavy. Murmel, 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 said the baby. Murmel yourself, said Robin. What am I going to do with you? An enormous truck came by and stopped. A truck driver jumped out and walked around Robin 3 times. Then he looked at the baby. Excuse me, said Robin. Do you need a baby? The truck driver said, well... Murmel, 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 said the baby. Did you say Murmel, Murmel, Murmel? Said the truck driver. Yes, said the baby. I need you, yelled the truck driver. He picked up the baby and started walking down the street. Wait, said Robin, you forgot your truck. I already have 17 trucks, said the truck driver. What I need is a baby. You can have the truck. And that was Murmel, Murmel, Murmel by Robert Munsch. Stay tuned for more YAMMO JAMMO videos from Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Bye for now. Welcome back to Yammo's Reading Room, Jammerinos. Today we got a special one. This is Zoom by Robert Munsch. Here we go. When her mother came to pick her up at school, Loretta said, "Look at this ratty old wheelchair. I've had it since forever. I need a new wheelchair." "Well, guess what?" said her mother. "We're going to get one today. I wanted it to be a surprise." So they went to the wheelchair store to get a nice new wheelchair. Loretta's mother said, "How about this? Look at this, a nice new 5-speed wheelchair." Loretta rode the wheelchair around the store. Zoom, zoom, zoom. She said, "Too slow." Then Loretta's mother said, "Well, how about this? Look at this, a nice new 10-speed wheelchair." Loretta rode the wheelchair around the store. Zoom, zoom, zoom. And said, "Too slow." Then Loretta's mother said, "Well, how about this? Look at this, a nice new 15-speed wheelchair. It's fantastic. It's purple, green, and yellow. It costs lots and lots of money." Loretta rode the wheelchair around the store really fast. Zoom, zoom, zoom. And said, "Too slow." Her mother said, "Well, what sort of wheelchair do you want?" Loretta went way in the back of the store and said, "This is what I want. A nice new 92-speed black, silver, and red dirt bike wheelchair." "Oh no," said her mother. "It costs too much money. It goes too fast. You are too little for a wheelchair like that." The lady from the store came over and said, "Take it home for a day. Give it a try for free. See if you like it." "Wow," said Loretta. "We can try it for a day and it will not even cost any money. Please." "Oh, all right," said her mother. When they got home, Loretta put the wheelchair in first gear and rode up and down the driveway. Zoom. But first gear was very slow, so she put it in 10th gear and went zoom. That was still too slow, so she put it into 20th gear and it went really fast. Zoom! And crashed into her brother. He said, "Loretta, if you are going to go so fast, don't go in the driveway. Go on the road." Okay, said Loretta. "I'll go on the road." Loretta went out onto the road, put her wheelchair into 92nd gear, and went zoom as fast as she could. A police car came up beside Loretta. The police officer rolled down the window and yelled, "Hey kid, pull over, you're speeding!" Loretta pulled over and the police officer gave her a $100 ticket for speeding. He tied it right to her wrist. Then he said, "Go home, kid. You shouldn't even be on the road at all." Loretta went home saying, "Oh, I'm in trouble. Oh, I'm in trouble. Oh, I'm in trouble." When Loretta got home, her mother said, "Why, Loretta, what's on your wrist?" "It's a ticket," said Loretta. "Oh," said her mother. "Is it a ticket to a movie?" "No," said Loretta. "Is it a ticket to a hockey game?" "No," said Loretta. "Is it a ticket to a baseball game?" "No," said Loretta. "It's a $100 speeding ticket in my wheelchair." "Oh no," said her mother. "This is terrible. What will your father say? What will your grandmother say? What will the neighbors say?" You know how mothers do that? Well, she did it for a very long time. Finally, it was dinner time. Loretta's father said, "That wheelchair is too fast. We are going to have to take it back." "Yes," said Loretta's mother. "That wheelchair is too fast. We are going to have to take it back." Meanwhile, Loretta's older brother was trying to talk on the phone, argue with Loretta, feed the dog, and use his fork all at the same time. He stuck the fork right through his finger. Loretta's mother yelled, "Blood!" Loretta's father yelled, "Blood!" Loretta said, This house is going crazy. They all ran out to the car. Loretta's father turned the key, but the car wouldn't start. Oh no, yelled Loretta's mother. How are we going to get him to the hospital? Don't worry, said Loretta. I'll take him in my wheelchair. She pulled her brother onto her lap and went down the street in 90-second gear. Zoom! As fast as she could go. That same police car came up beside her. Loretta pointed at her brother and yelled, "Blood!" So the police car went with Loretta all the way to the hospital. Loretta drove and gave her brother to the doctor, and the doctor sewed up her brother's finger. Then they went all the way home and knocked on the door. Blam, 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 blam! Her mother said, "Oh, Loretta, you saved your brother." Her father said, "You saved your brother. You couldn't have done it without your wheelchair. Loretta, you can keep the wheelchair." "Well," said Loretta, "thank you very much. It's a very nice wheelchair, but I don't want that wheelchair anymore." "Oh no," said her mother. "Oh no," said her father. "What's the matter with the wheelchair?" "Well," said Loretta, "it's too slow." And that was Zoom by Robert Munsch. Thanks for coming around Yammo's reading room again, Jammerinos, and make sure to check out my other reading room videos. Bye for now.